we're joined by the lads from MMA On Point. We talk all the big news stories this week. For example, the return of Chuck Liddell. He wants John Jones. And we're also joined by newly retired face of Bama, Richard Kiely, to talk reasons behind retirement.
This is Dad and Till. Tune in to Obviously Fight Talk.
I'm done, Rob.
What do you mean you're done? You're not done.
I'm done.
No. You recover later.
Okay. Welcome along to Obviously Fight Talk, episode 113. This is Noel O'Keefe, and I'm joined as always by the forceful Robert Palin.
Alright. I dressed like an adult today.
Yeah.
Kind of. Although a short sleeve shirt is slightly less adult than a long sleeve shirt. But it's like, do you ever play a game and like you get up to more levels? Eventually I will have a full long sleeve shirt.
You look like an off-duty soldier. It's the soldier
my
green.
bulging muscles.
No, it's your soldier green.
Alright.
Yeah, obviously Fight Talk episode 113. A shout out to our sponsors, to Fight Store Ireland, the Fighters Shy. It's Fighters Shy. I definitely said that. The Fighters Choice, the #1 site to get all your products that you need for fighting, I suppose. It's MMAmix.com there, obviously, because you know they're with obviously Fight Talk. And to feelsupreme.co.uk, if you want to get 10% off their products, use air code Fight Talk at the checkout. That'll get you 10% off.
I just wanted to distract you with the because I knew you were looking.
An orange in the middle of it.
And oranges. Brought to you by oranges.
This week we do things a little different. We say that some weeks, but we actually mean it this week. We're going to be joined by one of the biggest MMA channels on the YouTube. These lads do great, like Rob, you're a hipster, you know what these are. You're young and hip.
They're almost like video. They're not video blogs. They're like video essays and stuff. They're
like mini documentaries online, all about
video
MMA.
Essays.
It's MMA On Point. Jason and Tom from that channel will join us. They also do a podcast as well. We picked sort of topics, relevant topics from this week in MMA.
All the news in MMA,
and we just tangent. We just go with it.
Like Mackenzie there and stuff, like Hormis and Way, like
Chuck Liddell
coming back to the UFC.
Rodriguez return, or it's getting fired. Return.
Jesus, we messed them up.
But yeah, we talk about everything and anything with the lads. We go deep.
Yeah, it was fun.
April will be proud of us. Yeah. We go deep.
Didn't get that for a minute.
Yeah, we're a good hour-long chat, I'd say, if not more, with the lads. It was excellent. And then to open up, we're going to be joined with what came to me as somewhat as a shock. Scrolling through Facebook last evening was Richard Kiely has decided to hang his gloves up. Of course, the face of Bama, who fought for the world title in his last outing here in Dublin's Street Arena as the main event for Bama. And Richard is hanging the gloves up to pursue other things in career. We speak about the why this was the case, what was this plan and going forward and stuff. So good insightful chat with Richard, absolute gent as well, and a friend of the show. So we obviously wish Richie the best of luck going forward as well. But let's start it there, Rob, and let's dial him up and let's get on the phone, or the Skype machine, as you kids call it, and speak with Richard Kiely. So welcome back to Obviously Fight Talk. If you're looking on YouTube, you don't need to know, because he's the face of Bama, or we should say at this stage now, the ex-face of Bama. Richard, I was just scrolling through Facebook, bored at home as you do, and I came across your post last night, and I was really surprised by it. You basically said, you're hanging up your gloves to pursue other things. Was this something that was always in the back of your mind?
Yeah, so when I initially started going, when I went pro in MMA, I had a conversation with Dave Roach, and we said we'd do it for a year. So we see how far we can get in a year. Now, we did all right. We did all right in the space of a year. So, main event of the Tree Arena, fought for a world title. Fought for a world title after 2 fights. Third fight, obviously, with Alex. Obviously there's a certain amount of regret there, because of we went in with a serious knee injury. But look, it is what it is. Just, there's no point in focusing on that. It was a brilliant experience, and I just like I said, I want to focus on other things now. There's, like, contrary to what most people believe, you get loads of pats on the back and loads of high fives, and everyone will want to be your friend. Yeah. When you're doing MMA, but the practical element of it is, I have a little boy, and it doesn't pay the bills. My ambition was to do it for a year. I was never doing it for money. But now I want to focus on other things, and give my boy that stability.
Well, that's obviously a commendable reason, and that's the thing. A lot of people think, they see you headline the Tree Arena and stuff like that, and people just think there is automatic money in it. But even lads who are prelims and main cards in the UFC are struggling to get by. So that is a very commendable reason. I have to be honest with you. When I first seen the post, I thought maybe it was the knee injury that it just didn't get back right. It was nothing to do with that.
No, it's nothing to do with injury. It's something to do with lack of hunger. It's like I'd still love to compete in MMA, but the head is going to overrule the heart here in this instance. Like I said, when I started it wasn't about money. I said I'd do it for a year. I want to see how far I get in a year, and then, after I did that, I was still hungry. I still love to do it, but like realistically speaking, I want to get stability. And it's not that I'm stuffed for money or what have you, but like I want to go get a house now and that type of stuff. And if you go in over a mortgage and say they ask what's your profession, and you say professional MMA fighter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how successful that will be.
Well, unless I think your second name's McGregor, I don't think they're giving you much. What the pro career when you look at it? Then you've 3 fights: Keith McCabe, highlight finish. Daniel Jacek, big finish as well. And then you get to fight Alex Lahore at the time. It was a title shot, headlining the 3 arenas. So, as you said, within a year, you squeezed a lot into it. And man, what a year. Like, just like, I was watching, I wasn't at BAM at the weekend. I was working up in Newry, up in at Cage Legacy 8. So I wasn't there, so I didn't see it. But I seen a clip of you, and you were basically throwing every punch in the fight as well. So you're not worried. Like I was watching Chuck Liddell today on the MMA Hour, and he's 48 years of age now, and he's saying he misses everything about fighting. You're not worried that itch is going to be there anymore?
The itch will constantly be there. I'm a martial artist, a lifelong martial artist. Like I know people used to give out, and they said that I only got the world title fight after 3 fights. What they neglected to think about was the fact that I'm doing this since I'm 7. So I'm doing martial arts since years. So that itch will constantly be there. But again, the head is going to overrule the heart. I'm not stupid. So contrary to what a lot of people would think. So I engineered that fight with Alex. I was well aware that it was only 2 fights into my career, and I understand people's grievance with me getting that fight. But I engineered that fight, and that was that was through being smart and being strategic in what I was doing. I knew what I was doing at all times. So now I'm just going to invest that energy into something else. I'll constantly have an interest in martial arts, and constantly have an interest in MMA. Yes, the itch will still be there. It's going to hurt when I see other people in there fighting that I think that I could that I have the beating of, and that I'm well aware of my potential. I really think I could be world champion. Had I come to this a few years earlier, I believe I could easily be in the UFC. But they're all just what ifs, and I'm happy enough with where I am now, and I'm happy enough to walk away.
I have to say though as well, and I was reading an article as well with Jim Edwards, and in a way I was thinking this as I was reading it, and I really liked it. I think it was Jim that done it. Was it the article? It was Jim Edwards. But he put a little author's notes at the end of it, and I thought fair play to you, because you don't see authors do that often, and I think Jim summed it up perfectly, where he turned around and he said Richard Kiely's a fighter who gets it. You get a lot of guys that go out there and they might have 10, 15 fights, and you never hear them. You hear nothing of them. You came in like an absolute whirlwind. You promoted yourself and you didn't give a fuck who you offended doing it, but you done it brilliantly, and you really did. Like, you had the top guys in the European circuit talking about you, where there's, like I said, there's guys who have 10, 15 fights and nobody's talking about them. You got in there and you backed it up in your opening 2 fights as well, and you got in there, bad injury, and you took on Alex Lahore. Before I let you go on Alex Lahore, there was a bit of a scuffle at BAM at the weekend. How big of a scuffle was that, or was that just Twitter?
No, it was. It could have been a lot worse. Look, like I said, I haven't lost the hunger for it. I firmly believe that, like, I hit Alex Lahore with a jab, and his knees buckled, and he was frightened. If you have a look, he it was such a bad takedown effort, and it was this is a mistake on my part. But you can see he had such trepidation. I thought there was going to be an overhand right coming, because it was he was kind of cowering behind this takedown effort, and he just kind of grabbed hold of me. But he was nervous after that first jab. It buckled his legs and busted him open. You know, and now you see how he fought against Pascu. You know, he wanted to go toe to toe against a very powerful striker. So I think that says a lot for, you know, the power I had in my hands. As soon as he saw me on Friday, you could see he was very, very nervous. He he put his hand on me. So as soon as he put his hand on me, that was that's a red card offence. So I wasn't going to take that line down. But he was lucky. It was split up. I swung a punch, and at the last second, I realised that he was fighting my teammate. So I opened my hand at the last second. I didn't want to cut him. But he's lucky I did.
I just seen it. I actually seen Pete's tweet, and what I loved about Pete's tweet was the very first post underneath it was Paul Redmond going, "You only walked in, you didn't see a fucking thing." So absolutely loved it.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because Dave Roach was outside. He was outside talking to Andy Ryan, and whatchamacallit, he just heard a big commotion. He just goes to Andy, "Shite, that's Richie, I know it is." So look, maybe my reputation precedes me, but it wasn't intentional, it wasn't scripted.
Yeah.
But look, it happened, you know.
Two alpha males in a room, it happens, doesn't it?
How do you feel? Yes. How do you feel like you'll be remembered by, I suppose, the fans, your fans, the Irish fans who showed up in the Tree Arena for your last fight?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. The support I received throughout my fighting career. Like, I know I was divisive, I know I was Marmite. You know, a lot of people had opinions on me, you know, both positive and negative, but they had got opinions. So whether they'll remember me positively or negatively, I think they'll remember me. But you know, I don't really. I would hope that a lot of them would understand that it's part of the game. Whether they like me or not, they can't say that, you know, I didn't come to fight, I didn't put on an entertaining show, I brought knockouts. I get in against Alex Lahori with essentially on one leg, and at that stage he was probably one of the most feared fighters around on the European circuit. And I didn't take a step back. I busted him open, and I walked in exactly the same way I fought the other fights, my hands down, my chin up, and it was him that just wanted to take down. He knew about my knee. I know some people had questions about my grappling ability. That wasn't to do with the grappling ability. As soon as he grabbed my foot, my knee slipped out, and I thought it was going to pop out. So it was nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. I just hadn't got the power on the leg to escape it. And that was it.
As you said as well, Richard, at the top there, you've been involved in martial arts at some form. It doesn't have to be MMA, but martial arts from kickboxing right down to when you're 7 years of age. Will you still be involved? Will you still, if someone frequents in SPG Tallaght, will they walk in and see Richard Kiely still there?
Possibly, yeah, they will. Come here, listen. I'll always keep my foot on it. I have a great relationship with Dave. Dave, you know, isn't just like, he took a gamble on me. He took me under his wing. So, you know, I'll always have a relationship with you know, he's my friend, not just my coach. So, you know, and I've learned so much from him in terms of mixed martial arts. You know, he really doesn't get the credit he deserves. So yeah, you more than likely will. And who knows if Terence ever answers the call, it's the only fight I think that would come out of retirement for, you know, is that Terence fight. But you know, I think he knows that it's a bad matchup for him. So I don't blame him not taking it. You know, I know he hid behind my record. That wasn't the reason. You know, apart from the record, you know, I would have brought huge visibility, more visibility than he's gotten for any fight, including the Alex fight. You know, and it would have propelled him to, I think, a different level in terms of mainstream, because nobody really gives a shit about Terry except when I mention him. So, look, that's the only fight I think I'd come out of retirement for. But I think I don't think that's on the horizon. I don't think he's going to take that.
I'd say, Richard, we've spoke to you a couple of times after your victories in the Tree Arena as well, and the notable finish for me was the Keith McCabe finish as well. That finish was just, it was one where we all winced in the media room when we were watching it. And I think that's, like, I know that the trash talk, and that's why I feel sorry for whatever office or whatever business you go into, because your colleagues are just going to get such trash talked if they're at the vending machine or they're making a cup of tea. I can only imagine they'll get a full Kiely treatment. But I honestly, for me, when I think you, and you're fighting, it's the McCabe finish I think of. That's the one that really stands out for me. So I think if that stands out for me, and I've interviewed you and I've seen your interviews, I watch you and I follow your career, and as much as the trash talking and the building of fights, and I believe that's all it is, there's no real hatred or animosity there, it is just promotion. As much as that was fun and always entertaining to watch, for me what stands out was one of your fights and that finishing moment, and I think that would be the same with most people who've watched you fight.
Well, thanks a million. There is no animosity. It was building the fight. I had a conversation with both Keith McCabe and Daniel Lenachek on the other night, and both are really, really genuine, decent guys. I even knocked into Alex and shook his hand, and I wished him the best. And although I don't have I won't say respect. I respect Alex, but I wouldn't. I suppose I don't have the same amicable relationship that I would with the other two now. I thank them all for letting me share the cage with them. It's I lived the dream, and they were a big part of it. So I take my hat off them, and all three of them are top fighters. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Keith McCabe is probably one of the most underrated fighters in Ireland. I think if he gets the mental aspect of the game right and he heal up from his injuries, I think he could be a force. So.
Daniel Jacek got a good win over a teammate as well, an SBG affiliate teammate in Steve Jones as well.
I was commentating on it.
Wait, I wasn't watching it. Were you commentating?
Yeah, I did commentary for Bama for a few of the fights, so I was commentating on that fight.
Didn't know. See, I was working and commentating Cage Legacy, so I haven't watched it back. I didn't know that. I'll watch that. I have to catch up on the fights. I've only seen a couple of fights. But I didn't realise you were in commentary.
My job is safe now.
That's all right. That's all I was trying to find out. I heard it.
I understand myself and trash talking throughout the whole every time. Even the weights, even the 125 pounders was the point we lift.
I heard and have had confirmed from a source that Daniel Jacek is fighting fairly soon as well up in Brave, and he's taking on a certain Mr. Kiely. I've heard that news as well. I'm not too sure if it's out there, and I'm just putting it out there. But look,
I think you're just putting it out there.
My sources have confirmed, so I'm fairly confident in it. But Keane Cowley, Daniel at 170, an interesting fight.
Yeah, absolutely, interesting fight. Obviously Keane will have the striking pedigree over Daniel, but what Daniel has got is huge heart, huge grit, and he's tricky off his back. Never say die attitude. Steve Owens, very accomplished striker in his own right. A different type of striker to Kane, but it'll be a good finish, or it'll be a good fight. It's really about who gets to implement a game plan. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's common sense. If Kane keeps the fight standing, I would fancy Kane. Whereas I think Kane might have a bigger advantage than Steve, is Kane is tidy in the clinch. So when Daniel closes that distance, I think Keane might be able to implement the Muay Thai clinch. I think that could be the edge for him.
There you go.
There we go.
Fight's not even confirmed. We've just broke it down. Wonderful stuff. Richard, look, it's been an absolute pleasure again having you on obviously Fight Talk with us. And like I said, it's a pleasure talking to you after your fights. And you're always an absolute gentleman. We had a quick chat as well after the Alex fight up in the Gibson while sipping an alcoholic beverage. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, and we thank you for coming on today as well. I couldn't have not, as I said to you in text, I couldn't not have extended the invite for you to come on today. But look, best of luck in whatever path you take, be it going back to education or working whatever it is, and good decision. You're a man after my own heart. You got to look after your family, so that's a man's man. I don't think anyone will criticise you for that. But congratulations on what a year it was.
Cheers, thanks guys, really appreciate it, and all the best. And like I said, I'll be watching from the fan seat, so no doubt I'll see you around. I think.
Excellent, thanks a million.
Cheers, man.
Thanks for the time.
Bye.
There you go. The face Obama has retired, so now who is going to take the monocle of the face of Obama? Interesting times ahead.
Who? That's the big question now.
Who? But yeah, I was really surprised by that when that came on. It's just when you're flicking through Facebook, Rob, and you just come across me. Like, what? At first,
I was the news.
I'm like, what? Jesus. So
it was really abrupt because Richard was still calling for a lot of fights. A lot of fights against a lot of guys. So I was surprised, and I did initially think maybe it was the injury, but he has a perfectly valid reason, I think, to call it a day. It's the difficult sport to make a whole lot of money in if you're not at the top. So yeah.
Yeah, family
Smart
reasons.
move.
You'll never ever dispute a man like that. He wants to go in there and provide for his family.
Yeah.
Best of luck, my man.
All the best.
And pleasure having him on again on obviously Fight Talk. So welcome back to obviously Fight Talk, and if you're watching on YouTube, you actually might recognise the two guys from their channel as well. So if you're listening on audio, we're about to tell you as well, you may also recognise them. You could download the stuff too. So we're now joined by MMA on Point. It's something that we've tried to get lined up for a while, and Rob worked his magic and got it. So lads, welcome along to the show. So Jason, all the way from the US of A, hello, and from Tom from the UK. Hey guys, thanks a million for joining us.
Hi guys, thanks so much for having us. Sorry it took us ages to get this sorted, but we're super stoked to finally be on and to get to chat to you as well. I've been a fan of yours for a long time as well, so this is kind of crazy actually. You know, it's kind of crazy that we're here and we're talking to you guys.
Stop your nice things. Again, if people aren't from Airtoys, thanks a million firstly for that. But I have to say, Rob put me onto you guys first. Rob was like, you need to watch these guys. They do great little breakdown stuff, and all their videos, you got to watch them out. So Rob was the share of that. Rob tends to find my podcast and listening 9 times out of 10. So likewise, the respect and the admiration goes both ways. Love listening to you guys. But how did you guys come about? Because I deliberately introduced you as from USA and as from UK. Because you know,
how does that happen?
Are you guys like pen pals? Like, what happened there?
Yeah, we started on Match.com, and we. No, Jason, you tell the story. You tell it beautifully as well. So.
Well, okay. Nothing really that great, but so when I used to work for a company as a communications director, and I really hated my job. It was just one of those things where I was working crazy long hours. And so when I left that job, I was like, okay, whoever I work for is going to be a dream job. I'm not going to work for anybody else, or I'm going to work for myself doing design, video work, whatever it is. And so I decided to apply for a UK YouTube company called What Culture. And as a video editor. And I wanted to move there originally, but they were like, yeah, we don't even know how that works, but we'll give you a job as a video editor. And so I started doing that for a couple of months. And out of nowhere, one of the guys that heads up the place asked me about MMA and if I happened to know anything about it. And I was like, yeah, I'd actually really love to do something with your channel on it. And long story short, that was a direction they ended up not going. But in that process, when they were thinking about going all in with it, Tom was the person that they connected me with, because Tom was kind of the resident MMA expert. And so we started doing some of that. Yeah, Tom's like shaking his head. But, so we actually decided, okay, if they're not going to do it, this is something that we know will be successful on this platform. We obviously, have the experience here, so let's just go ahead and do it. And by the time we decided to go ahead and go through with it, it was August, which happened to be Mayweather versus McGregor. Obviously, that's a boxing fight, but just a massive event. And Tom had a stroke of genius to make a video about 7 boxers who actually were, I guess, crazy enough to say on camera that they thought Conor had a shot. So he made that video, and it just absolutely blew up. And pretty much since then, we've just been making content. And as of, I guess, December-ish, we've both been doing it full time. So, but that's the long and short of how we met, where we started, and where we came from. But it's just us two. There's nobody else. We have some other people that are helping us on social media, and we started working with Tommy Toholt most recently. So,
I saw that one today. Was the idea of the kind of, because the style of video is quite What Culture-ish. That's kind of the style of it. Was that always the idea? Because I know that you done a kind of full-length podcast, and now you do more so live chats. Was it always the idea of these little kind of really quick, very, very well done? Like, I'm a big fan of what you're doing with them. Was that always the idea, or was it more so do that but then also do the podcast, or did that just kind of come from it?
I'll let you take that one, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, having worked for What Culture for, at that point, like a year, it just kind of felt like, well, we know this format so well, and it wasn't just What Culture that we're doing. We like to think that we have taken influence from like Watch Mojo and other editorial-esque video. BuzzFeed do this kind of thing a lot, and we just thought, well, if What Culture don't want to do it, why don't we just have a crack at doing it? So we're like, okay, well, we'll take influence from these particular places, but obviously, so What Culture, considering we work there, and we kind of crafted it into our own thing, and Jason kind of curated all of the graphics and how the style was going to go, but yeah, I mean, that was always going to be the plan, to do these small pieces. And we tried to do a bit of a podcast. Then we kind of realized that maybe nobody's actually interested in hearing about our dribble. So that's essentially how it worked.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's amazing. We have we just passed the 100,000 subscriber mark. But whenever we try to do something with just Tom and myself, everyone's like, "See ya." Like,
crazy.
Nobody watches this stuff, so nobody really cares about us. We have no illusions of grandeur or anything like that. But I would say, and another, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying there, Tom. I'm a huge just kind of YouTube fan. So there are guys like Ethan Klein with H3H3 that I really look up to that have amazing videos. And then there are video essay artists like Nerd Writer. And then there are, really geeky stuff like the new Rock Stars that is everything about Marvel right now. And I'm kind of, I do admit I saw Infinity Wars last week, and I'm kind of obsessed with that whole thing right now.
We're gonna be friends.
A total nerd.
Still haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it either.
It's
no spoilers. I'll stay back.
Yeah, it's excellent.
But
Go ahead.
The lull there. Go on. What were you going to say? we all were polite.
A little bit.
Yeah, so it's excellent. I loved it too. But two things. The first one is we care about you. So that's two people that care about you.
Thanks.
Second thing is the Tommy Towhole thing. Is that going to be a regular feature on the channel, or what's going on there?
Yeah, and I think the fans have voted loud and clear. It's going to be more of who Tommy really is, like. More of his kind of normal demeanor. It seems that the fans have responded really well to that, but he's an incredibly bright guy, very smart, super witty, and we're just happy to be working with the guy. I mean, when you talk about somebody that we looked up to before we got started, I mean, I remember watching that guy 6-7 years ago. He was on top of all these controversies as they were breaking out, and UFC 196 and UFC 3 glitches and all that stuff, or actually the original UFC is what it was. Just a lot of funny stuff, and he hit it really big. And of course, he's on Fox here in America, which is just absolutely enormous. So he's a really, really big just kind of fixture in the MMA community that we've looked up to for a long time. And when we had him on the podcast, it was just, it instantly clicked. And that's essentially how that started. But yeah, the more the direction I think we'll go with is more of kind of like, all right, he's got his channel, and then for our channel, I think bringing him in as this just fantastic analytical, just kind of personality really is going to make a lot of sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's been within the community for years and years and years, and he's got such an excellent mind as well. Just getting to chat with him. So we chat to him today, and he was giving us some ideas of where he's going to go next with some of the analytical pieces. And it's super interesting. And anything that he has to say, it's always super interesting to listen to. But yeah, incredibly excited to get to work with him more. But yeah, he will hopefully be doing a lot of pieces for us.
Sweet.
He is. I always liked his little. I remember I was announcing Bama. And Tommy Tog
showed up on the screen. Yeah, well,
this is awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well,
just randomly, it was weird.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because I didn't know I was working with Bama. Yeah, great get by the way, guys, and it is brilliant. It adds a dimension as well, and people tune in for the wittiness. But then you go, oh, that's a really good thing you said there. So that's what's cool about Tommy Tog.
Absolutely.
We normally do on the show, lads, what we call quickfire news is where we time ourselves. We give ourselves 2 minutes. We talk about a subject, And
no.
when the 2 minutes ends,
you can't saddle Jason down to 2 minutes.
Oh well,
that's
the thing.
We're not doing it.
We're not doing it.
Yeah.
We're gonna open the subject and we're just gonna go for it. It's what we do sometimes when we have the likes of Luke Thomas or Chuck Mindenhall on. We just sort of get rid of the clock and let's just have a chat and let's see where it goes. So again, if just a few bullet points of news that hit the airwaves. Show my age, yeah. Hit the airwaves this week. One that stood out for me was probably one of the main reasons why I watch MMA and am an MMA fan. Was Chuck Liddell appeared on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. And not only did he come on just to say hello and give us all a little bit of nostalgia, he says he wants 2 or 3 warm-up fights and then a crack at John Jones. So at the age of 48 years of age, 49 at the end of the year, are we interested in seeing a return of Chuck Liddell?
I mean, Jason did a beautiful biography piece on Chuck Liddell. I don't know if you saw it. He did a whole piece called Chuck Liddell, MMA Legends. Yeah. And if there is a man more educated to talk about this, it's probably Jason. So, I mean, Jason, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, I do happen to have strong feelings about it, so I have no problem taking this one. It's just, the guy's 48 years old. His last 3 fights ended by brutal knockout. I think when it comes to, there's always the side if he has his own agency, he can do whatever he wants, and of course I mean that in the mental sense. He has agency to the extent that he can choose as a grown man to do whatever he wants to do. But there is this just kind of thing of, that last punch he got knocked out with by Rich Franklin was with a broken arm. Yeah. And it wasn't even that big of a punch. And Tito Ortiz isn't known for that. But I just really think once you get to a certain point, you get to a certain age, that was 8 years ago. That last fight was 8 years ago. So at the end of all this, trying to do this in 2018, there's nothing about it that makes sense. Guys like Randy Couture went to age 47, but even he was able to stand up to things, and I think it was the right time, considering the brutal knockout that he had from Lyoto Machida. So when it comes down to it, he's a legend. He's one of the absolute best, and I think he's a huge reason why we all probably became fans of the sport. But at the end of the day, I'd rather see the guy live a longer life than to have just kind of a cheap show that shows him fighting someone and trying to relive the glory days rather than, seeing him prospering and doing really well and being there for the 35th anniversary, the 45th, and the 50th anniversary of the UFC. That's what I'd rather see than just see these spectacles.
What about the top frame of, a couple of points from what you said actually on that as well. So I'll ask a question, but then give a few points just to do things backwards and awkward. What about Chuck Liddell had said, the Rich Franklin, when he said this on the MMA Hour, he got caught with a headbutt just before that, and he can't remember anything before the headbutt, so it wasn't the punch, it was the headbutt that caused the finish. That's one.
Okay.
Awkward, but true. Second, who are we to sort of tell Chuck Liddell in a way that he shouldn't fight? And Chuck Liddell addressed this as well by saying, look, if you want to live in nostalgia, watch my old footage, but if I'm cleared to fight, just don't watch it if you're not interested. And then the last one is not Chuck Liddell related. It's Machida has the kick of retirement. That's Randy Couture and Vitor Belfort. The kick of retirement. The kick of retirement.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good point. I didn't even put that together.
So
I'll let you take the first part there, Tom. I forgot what the first point was.
Yeah,
that's why.
I can't even remember, and I asked it. What was it? It was Chuck Liddell.
The headbutt.
Headbutt.
Yeah, headbutt Franklin.
I mean, well, he got knocked out straight after this headbutt. Yeah. So, he can believe what he wants to believe, but we all saw him, millions of people saw him get knocked out by a punch. It's the same kind of thing with, Overeem filling the tap. Yeah. I can't say, I haven't actually watched that fight probably since it aired, so, I mean, it's probably something that I'm super interested to go back and actually see whether, what actually happened. But the dude got knocked out cold. Yeah. that's, I mean, what else can you say, really? You know, there might have been a headbutt, but it wasn't, no way did that finish it. You know, everyone saw it.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of, I think every fighter, the thing that makes them so great, especially champions, is, you know, Boss Rutten, when he was a Pride commentator and been retired for, you know, 5-6 years, you know, by the time he left, was still saying that he felt if he were to step in, he could fight Fedor and win, you know, and this is talking about when Fedor is in his heyday. It's the thing that makes fighters so great, is that they have this belief in themselves. And Conor McGregor is probably more famous than anybody for really having self-belief that's propelled him very far. And I think that's what's going on with Chuck, and it's what we admire about him so much, but I also think it's kind of their detriment, because they always believe in themselves and they always believe that hard work can get them there. But there are certain times where there are physical realities that just can't be ignored. And in his case, you know, it worked for him all throughout his career as an athlete, as a wrestler, as a kickboxer. But once you get to a certain point, they're just that mindset betrays you after a while. And as much as we all love him and as much as he is a legend, I think there is a bit of denial, if I were to be just totally frank. And then to the second point, what was the second point? I totally lost. Oh, yes. So who are we to tell him not to fight? Yeah, I mean, we could get into a bunch of, you know, ethical issues on this, you know, like, well, who is somebody to stop someone from committing suicide? You know, that's obviously a very, very far example, but the point is still there. It's a form of self-harm, I think, at some point. And the guy, I mean, by an American standard, I guess I would be a little bit closer to libertarian on this kind of viewpoint, where I would say you can do whatever you want. You know, I'm not going to try to restrain you. I'm not going to try to pull the law from you. But I have openly said I'm not going to watch that fight, just because I don't want to see the guy get hurt. You know, I don't want to see another concussion happen where the guy's lights are shut completely off. I really don't want to see it. So yes, he can do whatever he wants, but I don't think it's a good call.
You're saying you wouldn't, you know, you're sat home, it's a Saturday night,
big question.
You know, you're looking at, you're looking around, you don't know what to do, and that fight's on, you're saying you're not going to watch it. You're straight up not going to watch it.
Man, it would have to be like one of those situations where it's like, man, I legitimately have nothing else to do. No, I mean, I think out of principle, I wouldn't watch it. You know, like I might be the only guy standing there by myself. You know, like, you know, if it was a rally of people and I'm like, I'm not watching it, and everybody else is like, well, we are. You know, like it might be that situation, but as it turns out for myself, just out of principle, I refuse to watch that.
Yeah. We spoke about this a couple of times, and that was one of the big questions. It was like, I don't want to see it. It's not something I have any interest in, and I will go into my kind of opinion on all that was a little bit later. But I'm a terrible person, and I probably would watch it. There's just something in me that I just can't. I wouldn't be able to look away. Not that I want to see it. I just wouldn't be able to look away. But I think that when you look at Chuck Liddell coming back, you of course go to the fact that yes, he was knocked out a few times before he left. His physical prime is gone a long time ago. But I also think you need to look at the skill. I genuinely think that if you go back and watch Chuck Liddell's fights, and this isn't a popular opinion, I said this before, I'm not sure if you agreed with me. When I was watching an old Chuck Liddell fight versus Randy Couture, looking at his striking, it's not the greatest. It's good, and for the time it was really, really good. But skill wise, I don't think he compares to many guys right now, even in the UFC's kind of top 25, 30.
That would be my point with this, is that the UFC, they're celebrating 25 years this year and all, and the sport has evolved so much that different. Essentially Chuck Liddell is the caveman climbing out of the cave. In evolution to strike, and I agree he's not as crisp, he doesn't have a stylish boxing, but Chuck used to beckon you in, take a shot to land his shots, and he wouldn't have to do that. Now, to counter the point you're making, and they are valid, I honestly feel like I'd want to go, no, I'm not watching it.
That's what I want to feel.
And then I'd go, I'm too weak. I'm turning it on.
I'm too weak.
But like what's weird for me with it is that if he was fighting like Vanderlei or like Rampage,
someone in his era,
I might watch it. I'd be more, you know, like I get awfully honeydicked. You'll hear me giving out about CM Punk, and then I'll be like Team Punk by the end of watching Embedded. But like with Chuck,
it just reeks of exploitation for me.
I agree. Man, but I mean, so you saying you didn't watch? What was the other nuts one that they put on? Oh, the Shamrock Gracie.
Oh God, yeah. We all watched that.
What was it?
Three.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and didn't Ken got knocked out by Hoist as well, which was crazy in itself. That was nuts to see that happen. And then he also before that he fought Kimbo, right, as well, and that was the first time in a while that Shamrock had fought, and he looked awful. And that did some of Bellator's biggest numbers, I believe. It's super, super sad, and it depends where you are on the scale of as a fan, you know. I think if you really are, as you know, as I hate to use the word hardcore fan, because if we've got, you know, hardcore here, we got casual here. I feel like a lot of people in your situation, Jason, are going to be sitting on the hardcore side, where they'll be like, I can't watch him fight, I can't see this, and then the rest of us are just going to be like, oh, it's a fight, like who cares? Let's just watch it.
Well, don't get me wrong, you know. So people say this all the time. It's like, oh, you know, but it's this crazy fight. It's a bad matchup. Like, I'm super, super against the GSP Nate Diaz call, which Nate Diaz is shot down. But when you look at that scenario, everyone always says, oh, yeah, you hate the fight, but you'll probably watch it. Yeah, I'm going to watch that fight. I think there's at least a difference there. And maybe it has something to do with, because I did watch both of those Ken Shamrock fights. You know, I watched Dada 5000 fight Kimbo. I watched all of that.
That was awful.
Maybe
the difference is how personal it feels to me. As like, you know, one of the very first pay-per-view fights I saw was the second Tito fight. So for me, maybe it's just a little bit more personal, or maybe I've just kind of like gotten more fed up with the past of seeing those, you know, real shitty fights. So I don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
It's like watching Joey from when he, you know, your Friends has all finished up. You've had the Friends season finale, and then all of a sudden you have Joey the series, and you're like, dude, this sucks. This is nowhere near as, you know. So there's a nice little link.
It's a hate watch.
That is one hell of an obscure reference, man. I forgot about that. Wow.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hate watch. You're gonna watch it. You're gonna hate it, and you're gonna hate yourself for watching it. But you're gonna watch it probably.
But you do it.
You do it.
You do it anyways.
Because we're all terrible people.
Sorry, I'm interrupted. I'm texting here. Mr. Till.
Mr. Tell. So Jason wouldn't watch it. Tom would watch it.
I'd watch it because I'm a scumbag.
Yeah.
But one point that I do think is, you know, someone said it. I was reading on a thread, and someone said, you know, Dana White promised him a job for life in the UFC. That job for life lasted a couple of years. So, you know, maybe Chuck needs to pay some bills. Now, I know he'd get appearance money, but you got to remember when Chuck Liddell was fighting and selling the UFC, he was the UFC, he was the face of the UFC, he wouldn't have been getting anywhere like the money that McGregor or Atten's getting now. Like, if Chuck Liddell was around now and was the superstar he was then, he would be earning that money. But maybe he's not set up for life. Maybe, you know, it's the whole Mike Tyson, you know, he needs money, you know?
Yeah.
Do you guys? There's no doubt he was making millions a year. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. But how far does that go?
Yeah,
that's the question. You know, how well did he manage it?
Here's a question for you guys. What was the job that Dana White gave Chuck Liddell? He wasn't like the janitor or anything. He wasn't like sweeping up the cage.
He was like a
VP of something.
Was he not like a scout relations or something like that? It was a bullshit title.
Sounds right.
I think Matt Hughes was something like that as well.
Yeah, Matt Hughes was like basically HR for the fighters, which makes no sense. It's Matt Hughes.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yes. Yeah, he's not the most HR friendly. He's actually, I'm releasing it tomorrow, making an MMA Legends piece about him for tomorrow. So it's funny that got brought up.
Awesome, man. Funny how you managed to plug it so quickly. But yeah, I might use another favourite. But yeah, we'll move on to Chuck. But you know, I can understand why I can understand why you're saying you don't want to watch it, Jason.
Completely.
I
don't want to watch it.
I don't want it, but you're a better person than me.
That's true.
But yeah, man, Chuck Liddell, the heyday stuff. But like, imagine if he came out and like,
see, this is it.
He
Look,
beat Tito, like. Come on.
Yeah, but he'll lose the next fight or the next fight after that brutally. I mean, it's just it's going to happen. Yeah. By the way, he was vice president of business development, which
what's that
business development? Yeah, that sounds a bit dubious.
It's sold for 400 billion.
Mohicans.
He sold it for 400 billion. It was all down to Chuck's business development. That's it.
Well, let's correct that. 4, not 400, but you're
before I was going to say 400. Yeah. Jeez, that's it overpriced. Yeah. Other news this week that I want to talk to, because I thought it was just madness, and I was shouting at my phone as I was reading it, was Yair Rodriguez is being cut by the UFC. Dana White basically said that it was his refusal to fight Zabit Magomed Sharapov, that he's like, no, he's ranked below him. Thank you. I've been practicing.
You pronounced the whole name. Yeah.
He's been practicing.
I'm a professional ring announcer. So White basically said, look, it's because he's refusing to fight him. He's ranked below him. He's refused to fight Lamas, which was, I think, the short notice fight where Josh Emmett stepped up. Am I right in saying that's the fight that he turned down? So he said, 2 when you're gone. But yet, like 24 or 48 hours before that, he said they offered the Diaz brothers 3 fights a year because they keep refusing them. Their contract keeps rolling over. So why is it one rule for one and one rule for the other? And is this the reason why, fighters, the whole fighter union and all this idea, this is why it has to, because how can you treat me different to how you're going to treat him in and around fight offers? And, if you're not taking a short notice fight, I don't think you should be punished for that. It's a short notice fight. Yeah. Ricardo Lamas is one of the best in the world. And I think you will struggle to find a top 10 guy who's willing to fight Zabit as well. So if he's not ready for him, or he wants certain time frame preparation, surely he shouldn't be punished. But this is almost like Dana White of the old. He just sort of says and does what he wants. But for me here, I thought it was a really bad decision with such a young, hot prospect that Rob actually tipped for Fighter of the Year, Breakout Star of the Year, maybe a Bellator. But Scott Coker has also said Bellator are interested. Of course they are. But what do we think of this treatment? And, should this be something that fighters, although it's an individual sport, should they be sort of going, hey, come on, what's the story here? You can't be treating us all this way, or one person this way and one person that way.
I'll let you go again, Tom. I talked so long. I've got to be intentional about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it just depends. For me, it's really difficult. I mean, I've always been one for let's produce the fights that are right for the moment. I hate all of these super fights. I hate the fact that you're seeing these certain fighters like the Diaz. I mean, everyone loves the Diaz brothers, but for instance, like now that Nate has kind of gained this immortality from the fights that he's had with McGregor, he can say and do whatever he wants, and he knows that as well. I think for some fighters where they're still not at that star power, and that's what I hate about it. There's this star power anyways. It's like, I know it's a slightly different thing, but when you're watching football, for instance, it's not like Manchester United can say, actually, no, we're not going to play Chelsea next week because we're not ready for him. Yeah. They are forced to play in that league, and they are forced to play against each other. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the facts when it comes to Rodriguez, but I mean, it definitely seems like an abuse of power from Dana as well, to just cut him just like that. I mean, it's the same thing that Ariel Helwani went through at UFC 200 when he reported news on Brock Lesnar coming out before that ad came. They said, no, we're done with MMA fighting now. We don't want Ariel here. And it just seems ridiculous. So yeah, no, I fully support you in that anger there against a kind of a ridiculous reason. But again, maybe tweeting out #fake news wasn't the most appropriate response to that. So I don't know.
I mean, so my here we go. My take on it is it's a classic thing. It's a bit of a meme with the UFC, and especially Dana White, is the classic cliche cutting your nose off to spite your face. It's like always going after your own athletes, your star athletes, and just kind of talking them down. And then this one is going a step much farther than I thought they would go. I mean, this is one of their biggest stars in a market that they've desperately been trying to get into, which is South America, specifically the Hispanic markets. Brazil is in, kind of in the vicinity, but they don't speak the same language at all. It was like when Cain Velasquez came and went to Mexico City, and that whole, kind of blunder happened. They were really pushing Cain Velasquez to be the star, to really get them in that market. And one of the most recent ones is, of course, Alexa Grasso, who is fighting this weekend, and then Yair Rodriguez, which was really this guy. that, of course, didn't do well last year when he fought Edgar, but he's this huge prospect, this massive star, has tons of flair, has tons of personality, really, really, really strong player for that market that they're so desperately trying to get into. And it just seems so odd to me. And as far as the double standard goes, I don't really struggle with that so much. I get, like, when people complain, I mean, we've made videos that are negative about Conor McGregor. We've made videos that are positive about him. But at the end of the day, he's earned everything he's gotten. Whether it was by his mouth or by actually winning massive fights and doing it in spectacular fashion. You can't deny the fact that the way that he beat Aldo and the way that he beat Alvarez were absolutely spectacular. And the same thing happened for Nate Diaz, the way he just, I mean, Conor McGregor looked unbeatable before that. And then Nate Diaz comes out and just totally rewrites the script on that. And he's just this explosive personality that is a star that just, I mean, Conor McGregor's 1 in a million, so is he, you know. Just a massive, massive star that never really could quite make it to a title. But I have no problem with the concept of, yeah, like, they're not firing Conor McGregor. Yeah, they're not firing Nick or Nate Diaz because they are just such big stars. I mean, what are you going to do? Let them go to the competition? Which is why I think it's ridiculous to get rid of Yair, because I think he's going to be one of those level stars, more on the Anderson Silva side, where it's based on their technique and their prowess and their just ability to wow crowds in a similar way as Zabit, which is why it was such a good fight. But yeah, on that note, I don't really have a problem with necessarily double standard because I get it. Yeah. If I was in their shoes, I would probably have a hard time firing any of my big stars either. But it was very, very it's just insane that they got rid of Yair.
Yeah, like
so, this is where we go with the here we go. I talk short. I just can't do it.
Yeah, like it's I completely get why they don't do the same thing to Nate Diaz, just in terms of the money. But I also think, as you said, Jason, that the position that Yair Rodriguez is in is kind of a unique one, as in he's still a hot prospect. He fought Frankie Edgar a little bit too soon, well, probably a lot too soon, right. In my case. And he was kind of brought along pretty slowly. He was given BJ Penn, but of course BJ Penn wasn't the BJ Penn that we knew. So just since that fight, or even since after the BJ Penn fight, I feel like they've been treating him quite differently. They brought him along slow. They've been really promoting him in the Mexican market and the South American markets. And then they give him Frankie Edgar. He loses that one. And then since then, it's almost like he's damaged goods. He's no good anymore. He has that one loss, which almost seems like a boxing model rather than the old MMA model that we're probably used to, where and a loss in MMA isn't really all that much. You know, it's bad. It can be bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So that's why I feel it's a weird one. It's not out of character for the UFC to do it. Like, remember what they done with John Fitch, which I get. John Fitch isn't the most exciting guy. He caused them a lot of problems. But Rodriguez, you know, he rejected a few fights, but he's still a big star. It just doesn't really make kind of logical sense to me to get rid of him so quick.
What do you think of the UFC? It's an old tactic that they've used for a long time, bullying, where they confirm a fight that's not confirmed to make it public, just to add pressure to the fighters to accept the fight. What do you think of this little bullying tactic or forced hand? It seemed to be the case with Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, but it seemed like Alvarez dug his heels in and was like, nope, I want a new contract and then I'll sign the contract. And it looks like it's gone. That's the case. But what do we think of the pressure on fighters confirming fights when essentially nothing is being confirmed?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty smart. I use it on Jason quite a lot when he's like, "Oh, dude, I don't think I'm gonna get this video done today," and it's like, "Dude, I've already tweeted it out. It's already gone out. It's confirmed it." No, I think that's nuts. I think it's nuts. I mean, that's. I wish I could elaborate as beautifully and as articulately as Jason has done. But yeah, I mean, in what world does any organization get away with that? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a really strange strong arm tactic. It feels really antiquated. You don't hear about, I'll use American football as examples. You don't hear about, commissioners of the NBA or the NFL going out and, I mean, I guess, they're franchises really, so you wouldn't really have the commissioner doing it, to be fair. But you don't really see people making this public. Actually, usually see it the other way around. Like Shaquille O'Neal, when he left the Orlando Magic to go to LA and play there, what he did was he made it public that his contract was coming up. And there's 30 for 30 that ESPN did on it that is fantastic, where he actually regrets making the move. He wished he stayed with the Orlando Magic, but he made the move anyway, and obviously had this big thing with Kobe Bryant and all this stuff. And he did, tremendous, but he was happier in Orlando, and he used that to get a higher bid, and he got paid more than double for doing that. You don't really hear about franchises doing that or sports promoters doing that. So it's definitely like an old school, like gangster tactic to just be like, yeah, I'm going to put you on blast. I don't know. I think Tom and I, certainly one of the reasons why we work so well is I think we're both extremely ethical. There are times where, the revenue comes in, or we've had sponsorships come in, and we're both like, no, you deserve more this month. No, you deserve more. You put in more work. And we're like literally arguing with each other on what each other deserves. Or like when Tom went to Bellator for the first time, Tom was trying to give me money because of the fact that he was gone. I was like, no, dude, you paid your own money to go to that trip. That's an MMA on point trip. I'm not taking money away from you. So it's like,
oh, dude, that video was ridiculous though. I don't know if you guys had seen that one, but we basically went to Bellator in Newcastle, and they basically were piggybacking off of a BAMMA event. Yeah. When we got there really wasn't too much to do. So basically we decided, actually, let's just go walk around the shopping mall and just ask random people whether they know what's actually happening. So that's why I felt so bad about it. I was like, I have had the most ridiculous weekend of talking to strangers about a subject they have no idea about, and had no idea that event was actually on anyways. But yeah, I feel like we've gone off topic here a lot.
Well, the point to bring it around is like, I feel like most people in today's age, that's the way they do business. Most people you work for, most employees, people are very, very conscientious about the way they come off. Are they being nice? And it's a classic golden rule thing too. And there's still obviously pockets there where that goes on. And, Dana White has these ties in Boston, when I wouldn't even say ties, where he was extorted to, by mobsters to pay money to run his boxing, boxer-sizing gym. And he left and he was like, nope, I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to start, to live out there. I'm not going to pay you guys a dime. But it feels like this very old school thing. Whereas most people like a Scott Coker, this is something that I think is a really big indictment on the UFC and Dana White, along with the Reebok deal and everything else that they've got going on with USADA calling people at 5 a.m. in the morning. It's just another thing that, I mean, who knows? Bellator could fall under like Affliction did. Like it could fall under like Elite XC and Strikeforce did. But at this point, it seems like they're here to stay. And for anybody that really, really hates their boss, which is for any employer, for any workplace you ever work at, that's the number one reason why people leave. That looks really attractive, and they're willing to pay you too, and they're going to treat you like an absolute king for being a top star. So using these strong arm tactics, I'm surprised that fighters still put up with it. I don't really understand it.
I don't think much will change. I think you kind of almost brought up the idea of unionization pretty much. I don't think much will change without that, because without somebody really keeping the UFC in check in all their decisions, coming from a fighter's perspective, I don't think the UFC, not that they're not trying to keep the fighters' interests in mind, which I think they probably are, but they don't have a real perspective of what that is. Like if I'm trying to keep your kind of values in mind, I don't really know what your values are like in your head, so I don't think I can really reflect what it should be, so I think without having somebody in the room representing the fighter specifically, I don't think anything will change.
Pretty true.
Yeah, it feels like it needs to be a top star, somebody that like a Conor McGregor or a Nate Diaz or like one of these champions like Demetrius Johnson, even, who are essentially untouchable. The UFC can't afford to fire them. So if they're outspoken about the issue, those little guys that are at the bottom, that are making, what did Nate Diaz even make? 20 to show and 20 to win when he fight Michael Johnson right before the Conor fight. Yeah. Those guys can't afford to be fired by the UFC because they're not going to make that money anywhere else. I mean, he probably could have, but it seems like one of these kind of things where if a big enough star can get in front of it, kind of like what it looks like with Bjorn Rebney's, fiasco with what was it, Donald Cerrone and all those other guys that were big stars. That for and GSP was in that too. I mean, it looks really like it was a really big thing. If something like that were to really, really be pushed forward, and with those big enough stars, it could really gain steam. But it just seems like everyone is almost short-term minded or singularly minded,
and rightly so for them. Like they're thinking for themselves. They need to make their own money. So like it's very difficult for you to say, okay, especially like a Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz who have just come onto this money. They don't come from a really rich background and they're making all this money. They don't want to say, oh, I'm going to stick up for the little guy, because they're thinking, who's going to stick up for me? So it's rightly so they're thinking that way, but there has to be like a conglomerate. There has to be a huge group of people.
I love silly analogies when comparing things, and if you look at this is like a fish tank, and when you sprinkle the fish food on the top, the biggest fish eats all the food. The little fish get very little, and that's essentially in a way it is. The big stars get the big money, and it just dripples down. And when they're finished eating, the little fish get it. So
capitalism.
That's the way it is, and we won't have it any other way.
They could be getting TV rights. They could be getting merchandise rights. They could be getting all these things. I mean, the UFC just did $150 million a year deal with ESPN, and they were getting an approximated 168 with Fox, and they're about to either re-up with them or NBC, it looks like. So they're about to make more than double of what they were, and the fighters are getting no cut of it. So even those guys at the top, that big fish, could be even, I mean, he could be a lot fatter by the end of all this if he wanted to be, and just say, no, I'm entitled to that. And maybe he is. Maybe they have their own individual contracts where they're like, look, if you want to sign me. So maybe there's a possibility they are getting some sort of, I'm sure they're getting an exclusive deal like that, but they could possibly get any more. It just seems like for them to see it that they're getting more somehow, even, I'm not going to convince anybody. I'm almost saying it like I'm speaking to somebody like that. But no, like, everyone stands to gain from it, and I don't know that anyone is really getting that picture. Like, even the big guys would be even bigger as a result of it.
Great.
In my opinion.
Another big talking point this week was UFC 224 went down, your main event. The end of the fourth round, Raquel Pennington went to her corner and she turned to her coaches and said, I'm done. And he said, suck it up. Basically, we can recover later on and go back out there. She went back out there to be finished. My opinion from watching fights over the years, and like you guys watching fights firsthand, attending, be it from a local show to juniors to amateurs to pros to semi-pros, whatever it may be. When I was watching that, I found that hard to watch for the very reason that I was looking at that fight going, right, we're going into the fifth round here. Pennington doesn't have crazy knockout power. She's not the most sub-savvy fighter. She's losing this fight. Where can they see her winning this fight in the next 5 minutes that is worth sending her back out there? That was my take on it. She appeared then on MMA Era and sort of said she was happy her corner sent her back out there because it was just a moment of weakness. I just think she's being kind to her corner to stop the criticism. But for me, I thought it was very disappointing, and I think corners and coaches need to be more protective of their fighters, especially if a fighter is telling you they're done. That means something is up. Just your general opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of spoke a little bit about this earlier today with Tommy Toehold, and I think the only thing that I brought to that conversation in between those, Jason and Tommy, was the fact that she we don't know, but like she might be in the gym after every single session, an hour down, 2 hours down into training, go over and say, look, I can't do any more. Maybe their corner knows her so well. I don't want to try and explain it, or I don't want to try and cover it for what happened, because I don't think that it should have gone on. It was clear that it was an absolute beating, but we don't know her well enough to know whether in training, whether she says that all the time, whether she gets to a certain point where she hits the brick wall, she says, I can't do it. I can't continue training. I can't do another round. I can't do this. I can't do that. And maybe we don't know, maybe their corner knew that, okay, she's hit this wall, but we've seen this time and time again in her training. So that's the only thing I can think of where you could defend this decision to send her back out. Maybe they know her so well that it's something that she regularly says to them. I don't know. Maybe that's the only way you can defend it.
For one of my jobs, I took a personality test. Tom's already laughing because he knows it's going to be long. One of the things that it actually measured was how people respond to criticism and how they respond to improving their job, specifically when told by an authority figure. And you'd be surprised how much of a spectrum that is. And we see this all the time with fighters. And this is one of the things that I think maybe can illuminate a little bit better. But like somebody like Rampage Jackson was really, really well known, even in the prime of his career while he was champion, for really hating training and actually kind of underdoing it. Even BJ Penn was known for that while he was champion at lightweight. He gassed. Famously in the second fight with, the first fight with GSP and the second fight with Matt Hughes. Yeah. These are guys that, are elite world-class athletes. And it just seems that people respond to, or they just have a different way of working. And kind of going back to that personality test, some people actually, they need that motivating factor. And, people, there was a TED Talk that I saw about procrastinations, they use the analogy of like a big monster, where people need that feeling of this just pressing down weight of you have to get it done. Yeah. And it only happens at the last minute when that feeling is so strong. And there's a lot of fighters that have come out, a lot of coaches that have come out saying that they've known fighters that are that way. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt based on those very fluffy, light out there things that are not concrete, that doesn't know anything about Raquel and her corner. But I'm willing to say that it is possible that she's the type of fighter that needs to be pepped up. Vitor Belfort, I'm trying to remember which fight it was, but he was asking people, man, I really wish I could remember the specific concrete example, but he had somebody come out, I think it was his fight with Chuck Liddell for 31.5. He had somebody actually come out to the locker room to get him pumped up because he was so scared before the fight. And not scared of Chuck Liddell per se, but just anxious, nervous. And he wanted somebody to come out and say, hey, man, get it together. You're an amazing world-class fighter. You're the phenom. I just think people need different things to motivate them. And it's entirely possible that she needs somebody to say, you know what? You're a world-class fighter. You belong in here. You're fighting for the title. Don't give up. You can make it through this round, and you still have a chance. This is MMA. Everybody, doesn't matter who you are, has a chance of winning. So that's my optimistic answer. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt.
And here's the thing as well. If she hadn't have said, I'm done, would you still expect her to go out, for the fifth round? I guess you would, right?
Sure.
That's
a valid point. I think it's a really difficult one because I get both arguments. The only reason why I find it hard to go with the side with the corner in a way is that we haven't really seen Raquel do this before. Now, I know when she was on Tough, I'm not a big Tough fan. I did watch parts of that season, and I know that mentally she did kind of wilt at times, so maybe she is like that, but she's known as a very, very tough, durable fighter, so I've never really seen her in that position where she was on the stool at the end of a round saying that I want to finish up. So
for me, what I got out as well is it's actually, Jason, a very valid point. Interesting. It's something that I definitely look at more. Very interesting. But I just felt body language, how badly beaten she was up to that, the fact that the tone that she used, it wasn't even I'm done. It was very defeatist in how she said it. It was like she was on the edge. That was it. I just can't do it.
Optically and visually, it looked bad.
Yeah, I cannot beat this person. That's what I got out of it. I'm beaten. She was broken. But your point, there's definitely wind of that. That's definitely a possibility. But just for me, looking at it, my opinion, looking at it, I just felt that's a defeated fighter that needed almost. I get what you're saying. Like there's you see it in so many occasions where I was only watching the 20 top UFC fights the other day, and I can't remember what fight it was, but the corner was going, "You got to go in there and you got to knock him fucking out," and it gave no technical instruction whatsoever.
That's what he needed. Yeah.
But the fighter got
up off. Bocho Kami?
Yes.
Bocho Kami. Oh my God, what a fight!
That's an amazing one. Yeah.
Great call, by the way.
Yeah.
Great call. Just that.
But that's the.
I remember watching that. Yeah. It was just amazing. Yeah.
I remember watching that as well, because specifically I was watching it with a guy who used to do this show, Carl Doran, who was a huge Tim Bosch fan, and when Tim Bosch came back in that fight, it was like what, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, and it's just crazy atmosphere.
But it's some fight that's knowing your fighter and knowing the thing. But for me, I just didn't get that feeling that night. It was all. Hey, what I got of it is, it was almost like they ignored her. She went, "I'm done. You're fine. Come on, we'll recover later." And that's what I got out of it. It ignored what was actually said, but. There is. I definitely think there's validation to what you're saying as well. So possibly there. Moving on, because time is the essence as well, gentlemen. One I want to talk about quickly. It was brought up earlier. Tom sort of said he hates super fights and all that sort of the mixture of super fights. So with CM Punk fighting again soon, does this show the state of the UFC is in right now?
That must be the first time I've heard CM Punk and super fight.
Yeah, unless you're watching WWE. But my point.
So I actually made a video about the whole WME era. I think there's a prevailing kind of conventional wisdom perspective on this. CM Punk got signed in 2014. Has nothing to do with WME whatsoever.
Yeah, good point.
He showed up in the middle of what broadcast was that? It was either the 196 or 194 broadcast, or it was the UFC on Fox where Cerrone fought. Who am I thinking of here? RDA. But he showed up in the middle. Well, 2014. No, I'm way off. I'm a year before. It had nothing to do with him. Either way. Way before WME, I think one of the only fights that you could really espouse that to is, Brock Lesnar was signed, for UFC 200 before WME bought it. Bisping fighting Henderson was before WME bought it. It was signed before that. So, if you actually look at the fights, the only one that really was a money fight of everything that's happened since WME bought the company is Bisping GSP. And look how that turned out. It looks like this crazy thing of a 3-year retired fighter coming out and fighting a bigger guy at a weight class he's never fought at. And by the end of that 3rd round, it was the most definitive fight that GSP had since BJ Penn. Just an absolutely incredible performance. The one thing about them is, of course, the interim titles. But, there were worse offenses going back to Zuffa with Brock Lesnar fighting off of a 1-1 record against Randy Couture for the heavyweight title. Absolutely ridiculous. He, at a minimum, should have fought Frank Mir first. Or he should have fought some of those guys that eventually did beat him, to the argument of saying, well, he won, so he should have got the title fight. Well, no, he got murked by other guys after that, namely Cain Velasquez, who was easily ahead of him in any sort of reasonable set of rankings. So this concept that CM Punk is some sort of WME thing, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with the state of MMA or anything like that. They've had much worse years than last year was. Much worse years than, 2014 was notably a bad year when they did sign.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
But so my opinion about it is, it works, right? They got over 400,000 buys, were about 250,000 supposedly off of, what was that, 203 was espoused to him. So it's very, very possible that we'll see that again. I don't know how many of those wrestling fans are just going to be like, he got murked in the first fight.
Yeah.
But my opinion is it's empty. It's stupid. He should be fighting in Bellator.
Yeah. I think the argument that you can have, because that's actually a great point that he was signed beforehand. The argument that you could have would be, after he got beaten so badly and he looked so out of depth, would the second fight have happened under the old ownership? And I don't think the answer necessarily you can say, no, 100% it wouldn't, because as you said, they've done some crazy stuff. But I think that's the argument that you have, that would, after that happened, would Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta and all those guys say, yeah, let's do that again. Let's do it again. Or would they say no?
Well, Well, Mike Jackson is a much better opponent than Mickey Gall.
Oh yeah, that should have been it. Should have been the loser fights. Yeah, it should have been the loser fights. CM Punk, not the winner.
Yeah. Exactly. So, like, my opinion is this is a better fight for him. And instead of having 2 years of training, he now has about 4 years of training. Would they have booked that? It's a fantastic question. There's no way to say for sure, but arguably this is better than the first booking.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
I mean, it's still incredibly bizarre. I mean, you've essentially got two guys that really should. They're on the main card, right? It's not like they're the main event of a prelim or on the Fight Pass or anything like that. They're on the main card, and it's just incredibly bizarre that they would try and sell a fight to MMA fans where essentially those two guys aren't anywhere near the standard of the guys who should be on that main card. But then again, it's down to this money thing. It's down to the fact that he makes a shit ton of money. And people like to mix up mixed martial arts and wrestling, and obviously wrestling has a really important place in the history of mixed martial arts. But the guy has no background in any athletics. I don't think he had. What was it? He did like Kempo or something.
Yeah. Kempo, karate,
whereas,
recreational.
The guys that, the guys recreationally.
I don't Kempo karate recreationally.
Brock Lesnar, they were legit guys, So it's weird. It's scary to think that this could be the start of maybe seeing, other kind of celebrities, other kind of reality stars. I know I saw something the other day, like 50 Cent was signing some sort of document with Scott Coker. So it's like
50 Cent.
Jesus.
Gonna knock out Rampage Jackson.
Oh my God!
But it was funny actually because I know he's all, and in fairness, this is probably the way I worded it. I know he's all thought I was just jumping down the new UFC, but it wasn't. I was sort of, my point was coming here with the UFC used to be the best of the best. So we've all sort of answered it. But to see two fighters fighting on a main card with a record of 0-1, like, is this like? Like, I know personally undefeated MMA fighters from Europe. I know them personally by name who are like 8-0, 9-0. I know the guys. I go, hey, and like I know amateurs. I was calling a show where there was amateurs fighting at the weekend, and CM Punk wouldn't get out of 30 seconds of the cage with them. But yet we're gonna sit down at like 4 a.m.
and we're gonna
Irish time.
We're gonna watch it,
and we're gonna watch CM Punk against we're gonna watch a man who plays wrestling against a man who takes photographs.
Might as well be drunk, right? Well, so let's really kind of press in on that though.
Yeah.
What time frame would you say UFC was about the best of the best? Because if you look at their early start, they were bringing back the old guys. They had Tank Abbott in there in like 2004. Kimo Leopoldo, Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock had no business fighting for the title against Tito Ortiz at UFC 40. He had zero business there. And even when you look at the old UFC, Tank Abbott never should have fought there in the first place. Like, he didn't know anything. He was a barroom brawler. Like,
he was a pit fighter.
Yeah, when he fought Maurice Smith for the title, he had pit fighter. They made that term up. It's not even a real term. But it was like a 6-5 record when he fought for the title against Maurice Smith. I feel like these figures have always been there in the same way. Like, it was more extreme in Pride, obviously, or Dream, where Jose Canseco's fighting Hongman Choi. I just don't know that there's ever been a true, pure era of mixed martial arts where it's truly been sport. And I'm with you on the desire for that. I mean, I hate these ridiculous fights because what I care about is seeing the best fight the best. That's what I care about. Yeah. I want to see two guys where I legitimately am like, all right, we can't have a better matchup than that. When it comes to skill, I mean, personality is an afterthought, like, are they the best two fighters in the world? And are we about to see who is by any... I mean, this is the real test to see who's the best in the world. That's what I like to see more than anything. But when it comes down to it, I don't think there's ever been a time where the UFC has truly been all about competition. The moment they've had a Brock Lesnar, The moment they've had a CM Punk, the moment they've had a Tank Abbott, they've gone after it.
Yeah. One of the things that I was actually thinking about, because when you brought this up, it's something that I spoke about. I was thinking about before, because the UFC are kind of in a bad position at the minute, in a way, where they used to be, as you said, the big organization where the best fighters fight, and outside the UFC, and it wasn't always true, but outside the UFC, apparently they weren't as good, or it was more of a feeder league. But now the UFC have almost their own feeder league within themselves, but they don't say that. So like, I think if the UFC come out and they said, okay, these fight nights they're under the UFC banner, but they're technically a lower level and they almost graduate up, I think a lot of people would have more sympathy, or not sympathy, but more, they agree with the cards that are maybe weaker. Maybe they put them at a different price point, make them lower, and keep the pay-per-views for the big fights, the big kind of things. I think the problem is that everybody just looks at a UFC card as, these are supposed to be the best fighters in the world. Who's this guy in the co-main event? Who's this guy in the main event? I don't know who that is. So I think if the UFC almost tiered the organization, which it's not going to be easy, but if they did have like a tiered approach where they say, okay, this is European regional level UFC of some sort, I think people will get on board with that and more.
Yeah, but you see, if they've done that as well, though, you're not going to tune in, are you? Because you're only going to tune into the bigger... Well, you would, because you're an MMA fan, but I mean, the general population that tune into these fights, they're not going to tune in and go, why am I going to watch the B League or the A team?
That's probably why they haven't done it. But then when people do tune in, they're like, who is this guy? Why is he fighting the UFC? So it's kind of a weird situation that they're in.
And I'm not impervious to that, by any means. It's hard not to be more excited about a card that has recognizable names than newer names. You can go back and watch tape and stuff like that and really get hyped up in a way, but it's not the same as there's a feeling I get when I see Robbie Lawler or Carlos Condit or some of these guys that I've really grown and emotionally attached to. So, I mean, I'm not going to try to claim that I'm 100% pure. It's always got to be the top competition. At the end of the day, that is the best equation when you're seeing the best fight, the absolute best in the world. But it's impossible to not get emotionally attached to fighters and personalities and all that stuff. Yeah. So I don't know what you do about the feeder organization. That seems like the real riddle. People are going to hate me for bringing this up, but Brendan Schaub actually had Stone Cold on the Big Brown Breakdown, which is now below the belt, I believe. But he had him on there, and Stone Cold was like, we had all these feeder organizations all around the world. What is that for MMA? And not even Bellator has that. They kind of act as, in some ways, that for them, or Bama does, or King of the Cage Warriors, especially Cage Warriors. I mean, there's a lot of imports from there.
86. Didn't the UFC used to use RFA or something? Remember RFA? The UFC used to use that almost as a feeder. They bought off RFA and then used that, and they're like, they kind of do have a feeder league with Invicta. Like they basically own part of Invicta. A lot of the girls fight there, and then they almost graduate to the UFC at a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they know to fight Cyborg.
I think the difficult part is too, especially I can only speak for America. Tom came and visited and was explaining, primary and secondary and college and university to me, and I was just like, whoa, that's how it works, dude. Just kind of dumb to that stuff. But at least in the American system, when you look, the most obvious case transition to MMA is, wrestling, where people start up in junior high if they get there early enough, college, and then move on to, going to university, or if they're lucky enough to get into a D1 program. And if they're even luckier than that, they go to the Olympics, and then they find themselves in the UFC because they got no place to go other than just finding a regular job after that. So they're just... I don't think we'll ever see it happen in the way that it happens for other sports, because I don't think there's ever going to be a day where a high school is like, we're going to allow organized cage fighting to happen, organized assault and battery in our locker or in our gyms, rather. And it seems like that's the thing that's really missing that other sports have. And what pro wrestling has is they at least have an academy where people train up and they go for Ohio Valley Wrestling or something dumb like that. I'm not a pro wrestling fan. But they eventually can work their way up. It just seems like it's very, very difficult. I mean, what do you do?
I mean,
you know,
it does make sense, because I think Cage Warriors have their own amateur league.
Yeah.
That I think it's out of Kent or something like that they do that.
Cage Warriors have started the academy, they're calling it the Cage Warriors Academy, where different shows, they're doing like a Scottish show, an English show, a Welsh show, and an Irish show, and they're going to, like, all the talent will then like basically face off against each other, and then you get promoted to actually fighting on Cage Warriors.
Can you break the news?
Great idea.
Can you break the news?
Yeah.
The great Irish ring announcer, that's all I know.
Yeah. Okay.
wait, say again? What's going on?
They have a great Irish ring announcer on Cage Warriors in Ireland. He's fantastic.
And he has nothing to do with either of you, I assume.
It's not
zero at all.
It's not Rob. let's put it that way.
Wow, that's
amazing.
Impressive for whoever
amazing.
That might be, which we have zero clue based on those clues.
My sources tell me he was happy enough with it. Yeah, it's a good opportunity for this person. Yeah, but no, that's what Cage Warriors are doing that now.
Human being.
And so
That's incredible.
So it's a good little feeder league for them. You know what I mean? To promote.
Yes.
You know, to get the young talent, because both in UK and Ireland there is a hotbed of amateur talent. Like there really is. There's a lot of breakthrough stars coming through the scene. So it's great that even, like, it's almost like the grassroots, and that's something that was missing a lot in MMA in both in Ireland, I can speak for, but in the UK there wasn't a real grassroots scene for it. But there really is now. The force is strong here, you might say, with us, and we'll have good growth and better growth now with these opportunities and these platforms, because they're never, like, there used to be the regional show, and then, like, if you look at like the next step up from the regional show was all of a sudden a big venue show, and there was no progress. But there's now a progress up from a smaller regional show. All of a sudden you promote yourself to Cage Warriors, and as we said today, it was confirmed Neil Magny is fighting the 86th Cage Warrior affiliate, which is Craig. His name is
Craig White.
Craig White.
Yeah.
Welsh fighter. So yet another Cage Warriors fighter moving on to fight in the UFC. That's pretty impressive, and it's a good line in a sense for the UFC. I have rambled a lot there.
No. Actually, no, I thought you brought up a good point, bringing up the Cage Warriors kind of like amateur league academy. I mean, it would make sense. Like when you think of an Aaron Pico, Aaron Pico is the perfect example of how it should have been done. Obviously, it didn't work out in his first fight, but this idea of this guy that just had tremendous training and didn't go pro until he was on a big stage. And I don't know if it necessarily should go that far, but this idea of, you know, maybe it would make sense for the UFC to start up literally an amateur league where you fight for them and you essentially get signed to a developmental deal based off your wrestling, or maybe you're kind of like what they're doing with, you know, bringing on some of these guys for Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. You start off here, you're groomed to be brought into the UFC, and it's like a scholarship program for any university or anything like that. I mean, maybe it is something as simple as that, and I'm sure there are a lot of mitigating factors that would make that more difficult. But just hearing that idea, I mean, it does seem like from a surface level that could be a fairly simple way of doing it. I don't know.
If you look at it, we'll say soccer for you, James, but football for us. Soccer here, like the likes of a lot of Irish players are poaching. They go over to the UK clubs, your big clubs like your Manchester United, Liverpool's, whoever it may be, and they go up. They might not necessarily make it, but they then filter off and they play football, maybe at lower levels or whatever the case may be. So that's definitely something the UFC could do, would be to sign young talent.
Have the resources to do it.
And it's not like, you know, your idea of, you know, college football, saying, you know, you go to college. The UFC could have you train by day, train by night, go to college. You know, they could do your scholarship that you go to college.
Who's putting you through college? Well, just the UFC.
Just the UFC. Dana White. I'm not allowed to turn a fight down though, or my scholarship's gone.
I mean, it does seem like, I mean, especially here, you know, we've talked about the magnitude and the difference between the UK versus the US here. You know, it's like famously, not famously at all, and I don't even know why I would say it that way, but for the very first podcast that we did, it would actually happen to be the day that I moved from Indianapolis to here, which is near Nashville. I'm just a couple of minutes out. And it took me about 5 hours to drive there. and I wasn't even, a quarter of the way through the vertical side of the country rather than the horizontal east and west side, which would be days to drive across if I wanted to drive one way. So I think that the thing that it would need to be comprehensive, it would need to be in multiple places. Yeah. And at least in hotbeds is where it could start, kind of like an Amazon self-purchasing store or something like that, where you have these big hotbeds, but it'd be difficult. I think I might be talking over you. It's really hard to tell. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool.
No, you're not. That's just me being animated. Saying.
Yeah, I think our webcam is off. They probably can't see us. There's like an orange thing there.
You guys can't see us, can you?
No,
I can't see a thing. I'm seeing straight orange. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that is.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
I just didn't question that. I just thought that's
we're like an hour in, and it's like, by the way, you guys are orange. We haven't seen you like once. Yeah. That's where Rob's the tech guy. I'm pointing now with this, which is hilarious. I'm pointing, and you can't tell I'm pointing. But yeah, we went on a tangent there. One last note I want to finish with is how disrespectful, unprofessional. What's your opinion on Mackenzie Dern missing weight by 7 pounds? She weighed in at 139.5 pounds 5 days before, trying to make 115. Is it the ultimate disrespect, or should she just not be fighting at that weight class? Because ultimately she's like 3 pounds away from fighting at a higher weight class.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how how Pennington's corner shouldn't have sent her out for the 5th round, but where the hell is her team saying, hey, maybe we should rethink strawweight and maybe go for something, didn't she weigh in at a sort of featherweight weight when she got there? And then, so, clearly there's some serious miscommunication. I can't say really. I mean, but yeah, it's incredibly disrespectful for her opponent. Who did she fight again? She fought
Amanda Cooper.
Amanda Cooper.
Yeah. Amanda Cooper, yeah. I mean, that felt like a feeder fight anyways, because, I mean, Cooper hadn't actually, seemingly performed anyways. But, yeah, I mean, it's silly to think that she should be in that weight class. But, I mean, that's down to her team, really. I think it's down to her team to say, you cannot make that weight and you need to rethink this. It just seems that the strawweight is a more of a popular weight class to be in. But this seems like the perfect opportunity for her to become a massive star in flyweight. So,
what's really interesting is she's only actually made strawweight twice. Wow. So she made it in her first fight, and then she made it in. I guess she's made it 3 times now, is what it is. Because she fought Ashley Yoder and Colleen Medeiros and Invicta. I'm looking at her record. My memory's not that good. I'm not going to claim it is.
Rain Man here.
She already missed it twice.
Wow.
Before she even got to the UFC. She's not been making it.
No.
And, I mean, there's almost no way. I mean, there's either some sort of strange biological issue where her body is just fighting tooth and nail, like what similarly happens to a lot of fighters when they can no longer make a weight, but it just seems like her body's not willing to do it. And she says, from the same MMA Hour interview that you heard, she had also mentioned that she's going to, kind of pull a Francis Ngannou and be there at the Performance Institute and working with their nutritionists, and they're willing to help her out, which I think is very smart on their end. But it just seems to me that for you to be 7 pounds off, pounds off, it's got to be a discipline issue. There's just no way it's not. And it seems like she was a bit in denial about it. I don't know if you guys happened to see this little clip, and I'm pretty sure it was, I actually didn't watch the Embedded series, but there was a point where she was talking to Big Nog. Yeah. And he was like, oh, how's the weight cut going? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's great, almost there. Like, what?
No, you're not.
You are not. Like, if you were 7 pounds over the day of, and she's saying she's, actually closer to 145 naturally. She's somewhere like, I don't know, what'd she say? She was 138. She's naturally like even closer to that than she is anything else. But there's no way. I mean, she was in the 130s easily while she was saying that. And what's remarkable is the poise she's had in the interviews and kind of the self-assuredness that she's had, just kind of talking about it like it was all these legitimate things. But something's wrong.
The greatest thing that came out of this controversy, though, was Joey Coco Diaz's tweet about it, saying Mackenzie Dern is a soldier. Make weight or keep this ass looking like a birthday cake. She went with Plan B.
God.
Oh my God.
Joey Diaz is a madman.
He's a great man.
Fucking cocksucker.
Amazing, but yeah, man. There's no excuse for that. I mean, as somebody who's not a fighter, I want to be critical of myself and not just say too much, but the fighters have come out and said it. The coaches have come out and said it. It's a unanimous.
Yeah.
I can't afford to give her a benefit of the doubt on it based off of everything I've heard from all the experts. She's doing something wrong, and what it appears to be more than anything is a discipline issue.
Plus, there was that thing, the news that came out that John Crouch asked her to leave the MMA lab because of apparent she wasn't putting the work in or something like that. So that obviously put up a red flag beforehand. So with that, and then with what everybody else is saying, and then you miss weight by such a huge margin, like you're basically in the next weight class. It's insane. There's definitely something there. Something.
Gentlemen,
how crazy is that, though?
Yeah.
Like, she's knocking out. I mean, almost basically knocked out Amanda Cooper.
Yeah.
Beat Ashley Yoder. And she was this Brazilian jiu-jitsu just absolute master. She was considered the #1 in the sport for years.
Yeah.
She ended up losing before she got to MMA, but still, like, it's that classic example. I think we all know people that are super talented at stuff but don't apply themselves, and she seems like she's that for MMA.
Yeah.
Kind of like Rampage Jackson that I talked about earlier, who didn't like to train and was world champion of the UFC, knocked out Chuck Liddell twice. So you got somebody like Mackenzie Dern who's not putting the work in, but is still getting these stunning results.
And that's a bad thing, probably. It's probably a bad thing for her as well, because like, I want to see her succeed and I want to see what her potential is, but going in there and knocking out a striker, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
Is she going to put the work in next? Does she think that she's going to knock out everybody when clearly she has a deficiency on the feet? She can crack.
She's going to have the Ronda Rousey effect, knocking out Betch
Coher.
I am the Mike Tyson.
She's going to hire Edmund.
Edmund's going to say she's knocking out the guys next.
It's mad.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Time has absolutely tore away talking to you. We went down. I love the tangents. We started one little subject and we go on tangents, but we got there in the end. So it's almost been an hour of chit chat, gentlemen. So
thanks a lot.
Just a shout out to anyone who's listening to us who isn't aware. Where can they find you, gentlemen, on social media?
Nowhere. Tom, I'll let you answer that. I've talked way too much.
Oh man, so it's kind of a weird one. Basically, in YouTube, just search MMA on Point. On Twitter, we're On Point MMA because
God damn it.
Because we can't have MMA on Point because it belongs to sort of some middle-aged single mum who I'm assuming wanted Mama on Point.
Oh, she missed the A.
But I guess she's settled with MMA on Point. I don't know, but so I think everywhere other than Facebook, we're On Point MMA from this one pesky middle-aged mum.
I set up obviously Fight Talk on Twitter perfectly as obviously Fight Talk, and then couldn't remember any of the logins, couldn't remember the setup, couldn't remember the
such
email
an old
address,
man.
couldn't remember anything, so we had to settle on @talk_fight.
Shorter.
Nice.
Shorter.
Nice.
Yeah. It's solid.
But Jason, Tom, absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Check out their videos.
Check out the videos. And let's do it again, gentlemen, and let's not leave it so long. Pleasure chatting with you, though, folks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on. This was so much fun as well.
Thanks for your time. We're willing to do tangents all the time. Obviously, I am. So.
Well, Rob, I think it's safe to say tangents were had, conversations were held. It was interesting. We start off with a little subject that goes off elsewhere. I gotta say, Tom didn't undersell Jason in the slightest bit about being a talker. Not in the slightest bit, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Sometimes, when you have guests on or when you have people come on, you sort of, you grill them with questions. No, you just have a general chit, you'd ask, have points. But with this one, we just sort of wanted to have a general chit chat with the lads. It was somewhat structured that we had A few points that we wanted to talk about, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. And if you enjoyed it, go and check their channel out as well. Sure, they got Tommy Toehold. They're a big deal there. MMA on Point. You'll find them on YouTube. You just type that in.
They're going to UFC Liverpool as well. Go stalk them.
Yes, go and find it. They go and find them. They're going to be. You'll hear the American guy. That's clearly Jason. So just go find him, and they're going to be recording. And you can cry about how Liverpool lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid to the lads. But yeah, go check them out. My points out. Jason, Tom, thanks a million for coming on. Richard, Kiely, thanks a million for coming on and speaking to us. As I said in the interview, I just wanted to extend the invite. Didn't know if he'd take it or not because he just announced it last night, but the gentleman he is, of course he took it.
For the big Brendan Dorman fans as well who are listening, he was supposed to be on, but unfortunately it didn't happen just because of the days. We forgot to tell him we weren't recording on the normal day.
Yeah, we hit him up on Twitter to say, hey Brendan,
you ready? And we're like, oh shit, this is not the right day.
And I was like, bank holiday, and he's like, what the hell's a bank holiday? Do you not take bank holidays in America?
Yeah, right.
I think we just have a dumb American in Brendan Dorman.
Don't say that.
No, Brendan's my hero.
Love Brendan. Next week.
Yeah, next week the D will be back. That's of course if Noel is still here next week.
Shit,
or may not be. So maybe a special Rob if the
big B comes.
The big B. If my little daughter is born between now and then. More than likely I'm not going to be here next week. Rob will be hosting probably a home edition or something.
We'll do something
with voices of obviously Fight Talk. It'll be a blast with the past. You might even get Darren around the gaff.
I might actually. It's a good idea.
But obviously Fight Talk will not suffer while I suffer holding a newborn. Now, so more than likely I'm not going to be here. So get your fill if you've gone. But Noel, what am I going to do? Great idea. Log into a different device and press play on this video again and watch it again.
Yeah.
Sneaky views, Rob.
Yeah. And
subscribe. But yeah, this has been obviously Fight Talk 113. Rob, pleasure talking with you, and it was great. Man. Different voices on the show this week. Always fun, interesting. Yeah. Fight Store Ireland, thanks very much. MMAmix.com, thanks very much. And to feelsupreme.co.uk, 10%. Fight Talk. Being emotional. Rob in his army shirt. When are you going back? When are you getting called back to Iraq? You all right?
I don't know, but I think we should finish this like a news report.
Yeah, you have a whale's vagina. Peace!